You know, every great story needs someone who remembers all the details. An archivist, right? And sometimes that archivist has a pretty strange nickname. This one phrase from a guy named Flash, it's our key. It's how we're going to unlock a really cool, kind of forgotten moment in music history.
So let's dive in. Today we're unpacking this fantastic B-side story from the early 90s. And it really is a tale about what happens when you get so close to making it and then everything just completely falls apart. We're talking about a legendary venue, a band that was right on the verge, and, maybe most importantly, the huge lesson you can learn from a totally empty room.
Okay, so to really get this story, you gotta meet the two guys telling it. First up, there's Stu. He's the songwriter, kind of our thoughtful guide looking back on everything. And then there's Flash. He's the drummer, and he's this high-energy, super fast-talking historian for the band. The guy who remembers everything.
And this is what's so cool about it. The way they talk about Flash's memory, they call it the Baba Booey brain. I mean, the guy remembers it all. The car rides, the crummy early gigs, all the little moments everyone else totally forgot. So he's not just some source for the story, you know? He's basically the living, breathing hard drive of the band's whole existence.
So the band right at the center of all this is unWorld. And you got to picture the early 90s DC music scene, right? Think of it like a solar system, with all these venues and radio stations as the planets. Well, unWorld, they weren't one of the main planets. Nah, in their own words, they were just kind of orbiting way out in the asteroid belt, just desperately trying to get noticed.
And of course, every single band out there in that asteroid belt is just waiting for some kind of gravitational pull, right? Something to launch them into a bigger orbit. For unWorld, that big opportunity, well, it came knocking. And it was all because of where they lived, and more importantly, who they lived with.
Their home base was this classic band house out in the suburbs. They called it the Playhouse. And it was exactly what you're imagining. It was their sanctuary, the place where all their noise and their ambition got cooked up. I'm talking amps in the living room, cereal bowls piled high in the sink, yeah, the whole 9 yards.
And this right here lays out the whole power dynamic perfectly. On one side, you've got unWorld, this hungry local act. And on the other side, Cellar Door, who were legit the most powerful concert promoters in all of DC at the time. So what was the connection, the bridge between these two worlds? It was their roommate, Chris Tanner. He actually worked for Cellar Door. He was their man on the inside, their direct line to the mothership.
So then, one day, Chris comes home to the Playhouse with what is basically the proposition of a lifetime. He tells the guys, hey, I think I can get you a show, an opening slot at the Bayou. And you have to understand, this wasn't just any gig. For a band like them, this was the gig.
Okay, let's just pause for a second and really appreciate the weight of this. The Bayou. It was legendary. It had that smell of, as they put it, stale beer and glory. This is the stage where U2 played on their first ever US tour. Springsteen too. So for a local DC band like unWorld, this wasn't just a step up. No way. This was a potential launchpad to a whole other level.
And the headliner? The band they were supposed to open for? Well, it was this group from down in Charlottesville that was starting to make some noise on the college circuit. Now, you really got to transport yourself back to the early 90s here. This was not the stadium-filling giant we all know today. Ants Marching wasn't on the radio yet. At this point, they were just this really promising band that happened to have a fiddle player.
So the stage is set. The dream gig is officially booked. The band is practicing their hearts out. Everything is lined up perfectly. But this is where the story takes a really sharp, completely unexpected turn. This is what they call the anomaly.
The call comes in from the promoter, Cellar Door, and the news is brutal. The gig is off. It's canceled. For unWorld, I mean, you can just imagine it's a crushing blow. It's like fumbling the ball on the 1-yard line. And the immediate assumption, of course, is that it was their fault, right? The small, local opener just couldn't sell the tickets.
But why was the gig really canceled? I mean, the easy answer, the one everyone assumes, is that the opening band just couldn't move their tickets. But that's not the whole story here, not even close.
And here's the twist. Just look at this breakdown. unWorld, they sold, and I'm quoting them here, approximately 0 tickets. It was pretty pathetic. But here's the real shocker. The headliner, the soon-to-be massive Dave Matthews Band, they also sold almost no tickets. It was a total ghost town for everybody involved.
So the really crucial point is this. The failure wasn't just on the local guys. The promoter looked at the total ticket sales for the whole night and just decided, nope, it's not even worth keeping the lights on. Think about that. Even these future titans of rock, on this one specific Tuesday night in DC, couldn't get enough people in the door.
Now look, most bands in this situation,
They'd just stay home, they'd sulk, maybe crack open a few beers and write a sad song about it. But this is where that Baba Booey energy from Flash kicks back in. They decide to do something totally different. They decide to make a pilgrimage to the scene of their own failure.
And this quote from Flash, men, it's just everything. He was the one who insisted they go. He was like, nah, we're going anyway, dude. For him, it wasn't about licking their wounds. It was about showing up. He just knew there was something to learn by being there, by being in the room, even if it was to watch the very band that kinda sorta got them kicked off the bill.
So they do it. They drive down to Georgetown, they walk into the legendary Bayou, and the place is a cavern. It's practically empty. We're talking maybe 10 people in the whole place. They just walk right up to the front of the stage. There are no barriers, nothing. They're close enough to just lean on the monitors. And then, this incredible moment of connection happens. The headlining band walks out on stage, and Dave Matthews himself looks down, sees them standing there, recognizes them, and asks this super direct, kinda humbling question. And you can imagine, Stu, he's just mortified, right? He has to admit defeat right to this guy's face. But what's so amazing is how honest he is. He doesn't say, yeah, well, we didn't sell any tickets. Nope. He just delivers the message exactly as he got it from the promoter. Yeah, but they told us you didn't sell any tickets. Just this moment of shared, totally brutal truth. And there's no big drama, no argument. Just a nod, a shrug, a silent acknowledgement that, yeah, on this particular night, they were all in the exact same leaky boat. And then, what did the Dave Matthews Band do? They counted off and they played an absolutely ferocious set to those 10 people, like they were playing a sold-out arena. It was just a total masterclass in what it means to be a pro.
So that night, that failure, it became this classic B-side story for unWorld. A story about bombing, for sure, but it was also a story with this really deep lesson baked into it. And that lesson? Well, that's our big takeaway here.
When you boil it all down, the lesson from that empty room is this. Look, you can miss the boat, you can totally fail the ticket count. That stuff happens. But the one thing you have to do is you have to show up anyway. You've got to be in the room, you've got to watch how the pros handle it. Because sometimes the lesson you learn from watching a failure, both your own and someone else's, is way more valuable than the gig ever would have been.
And that really leaves us with one final thought, doesn't it? I mean, this whole B-side story is about one band's near miss, but the lesson in it is totally universal. It really makes you ask yourself, right? When things have gone completely wrong for you, what's the most valuable thing you've ever learned just by choosing to show up for the aftermath?